Welcome back, my friends. I am so excited for this show today. I am joined by Giovanni Marsico, the founder of Archangel, and he also happens to be the leader of an amazing program that I myself am in called Synergy. So we're going to get to all the things, talk about how he got to where he is, how he's created the success that he's created, and really, he's just a rock star. So I'm super stoked for all of you guys to get to know him. Giovanni, thank you so much for joining me today.
I am extremely honored.
Well, let's not go there, but come on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you have created, because let me actually back up and tell the story about how I got involved with your stuff. You don't even know this story, but it actually all has to do with this podcast, because you have been on my radar and I'm like, I want to interview him on my podcast. He'd be a great guest. He's totally like resonant with all the things that I talk about. And so I was kind of just, tracking you on social media. That was it. We were friends on Facebook. We also had, I think, met maybe at Genius Network, but we didn't really know each other.
Yeah.
Then I see this post from you and you're like, hey, I used to have this $20,000 program. Now I'm just going to give it away as a gift. I was like, what? And I keep reading and every little detail is exactly where I'm at in my business. And I was like, holy cow, I want to be in this thing. Let's connect. So we did that. And then I'm like, oh, by the way, can you be on my podcast? But really, it all started because of this.
I love it.
Strange things will lead us to where we need to be. Anyway, for my audience, would you give a little background about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. It always feels like the most challenging question for me, which I find hilarious because people are always asking, and even my parents don't know. So
well, I think the parents sometimes have the hardest understanding of what exactly do you do?
I'll give a minute of context, which will help. Or where I met you is a group called Genius Network. Joe Polish runs it, and I owe so much to Joe. I am eternally grateful for my own, I guess, personal transformation and up-leveling that happened while I was in his orbit. And when I met him, I was in the real estate space. Well, not met him, but when I started joining or going to his events, I was in the real estate space. I did really well. I secretly hated it because it was simply a financial gain thing, and there was zero connection or alignment to who I am and what I want to do. But it afforded me the chance to start investing in myself and going to different conferences and mastermind groups and events. And it rekindled my love and passion for experience design and event production. I've been doing events my whole life. Like I started when I was 16, and my very first event for teenagers had 1,000 people.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I love bringing people together. And then I thought, well, I should start doing something like this to kind of scratch my own itch of the event I would want to attend with the attendees that I want to be a part of. Essentially, I loved all the groups I was in, but there was always something not off, but not completely aligned. I wanted to be around people who were very mission oriented and wanted to actually create a bunch of change, but also make a lot of money to make that change and not have to choose one or the other.
Thank you.
It was often like, hey, how do we make so much money? Or how do we change the world? But money's evil, and all these weird, it was like, there's a synergistic hybrid of both of these worlds. And I can't find it. So I'm just going to create it. And as a sort of side thing in 2014, I started producing small events, and it just took off to the point where in 2016, I had to quit all my real estate stuff, go all in.
I had to.
Yeah. Well, it was painful. The contrast of it, like the analogy I gave to someone was real estate was like a very bad marriage of convenience, and Archangel was my soulmate. But without feeling that contrast, how would I have known? And that in 2016, we produced our first larger event, Archangel Summit, and had 1,500 people, and it just, everything took off. And then we started launching coaching programs and memberships and masterminds and different ways for me to bring people together so that we can support each other's growth. And now everything's evolved and scaled up to where we're still doing events, and this is post COVID, so we can do them again. And I have two memberships: Archangel Synergy, which you're in, and Archangel Council, which is our group of multi-million-dollar founders who want to go from making millions to impacting millions. And we produce films. So our first film, Dreamer, launched in 2020. It won 3 Emmy Awards. and I fell in love with the process. So we're going to do one film a year.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. That is fantastic. So I
Thank you.
wanted to ask you about this gift of synergy. You said, oh,
Mhm.
we used to charge 20K for it. Now I want to offer it to all of these people. And you had some parameters, and you also, I will say, curated it quite heavily, or curate it. You're still in that process quite heavily, which we all appreciate, those of us who are in it. But why the shift of charging for something which is obviously hugely valuable to now just here, it's an offering?
My whole life, I've been connected with giving in some way or something philanthropic. And that part of me has been missing in the past few years. Like when we did events prior to COVID, a lot of them had a fundraising component where I think we've raised $1 million for different charities. Um, and I thought, actually, it was in February. We were doing an event in San Diego, and part of the event was this sunrise morning guided meditative hike, which was amazing, run by a guy named Murray Hidari. And we were at the top of this cliff or peak with the sun coming up and the sun in our faces. And we were there for 10 minutes just to meditate. And that's where the download happened. The whole thing was simplify everything, make it so that the only way people can pay you is for council membership or to attend events. Everything else you do is a gift. And you're going to
Mm,
teach however you can teach. So on social media, so, if you follow me there, a lot of the stuff I'm going to do more and more of is sharing my very best wisdom. Um, and then in synergy, it's still curated. So you have to be aligned. And I personally interview and choose everyone to join that group. And synergy is kind of like the farm team for council. So it's people who really want to help a lot more people. And my whole thing is I'm playing the long game to say, I want to help you get to $1 million business. And then it's kind of a simple equation. Mindy, if I help you make $1 million, at some point, will you pay me to be in my council group?
probably. Like
Right.
it
So
seems like very obvious.
yeah. So that's the premise. And more importantly, I'm very amazing at curation of people who are aligned with each other. And when
I
you
want to talk
do
about
that
that.
right, and when you build community the right way, everyone steps up to support each other, which means um, and that's why it's called synergy. It's like we're all there for each other, not just like it's not me at the top of a mountain saying, "Hey, everyone!" It's we're there's actually an amazing word I found called Scenius, Scenius, which means collective genius. And it's a different model.
Mm.
And it's like we're all giving to each other and we're all growing at the same time.
Yeah, I have to say that I was a little bit, not in a bad way, but a little bit surprised at the level of curation that you have, because you asked me a whole bunch of different questions. People talk about curation a lot in groups like this, and it only sometimes actually appears that way when you're in the group. Like, I don't know if you know Kevin Nations, I'm sure you do, when he talks about the whole point of curation is to keep the other mother out. Like that's the way that he says it. Cause he's like, really, when you pay this much money or choose to be in this crew, it's like, yes, who's in the room for sure. But more importantly, sometimes it's who's not in the room. So you actually do this really, really well. How do you know, just from, let's say, a social media conversation, if someone's the right fit? Is it gut feel? Is it specific questions? Like, what do you do?
It's a combination of all of the above.
Okay.
First, having thousands of those conversations and looking and understanding what patterns to look for in a bunch of variables, how people respond, when they respond, what language they're using, what questions they're asking. And then I also vet, like I'll go through all of their social media. I want to see how they interact with other people, and what I'm looking for is alignment to values, right? So for me, anyone in this group is warm, and warmth is an important one for me. Kind, super giving, wants like very much into personal growth as an avenue to business growth, and um, is there for the rest of the members, not just themselves, but it's both. It's like, how do I want to get better. I want my business to get better. I want to make more money. I want to help more people. And I want to see all these other people win. So there's a lot of that. And after years of figuring this out, I've condensed it into actually, it's not actually that many questions anymore. It used to be way more. And now I just know what
Really?
to
It
look for.
felt like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing, because it truly has been, so far since I've been in it, really an extraordinary experience of just people being like, yes, my first image of that was I had posted on my social, like, I am not an asker. I am not like, please help at all. I like rarely even post on social media. I just posted this thing. Hey guys, we have this book coming out. And you right away were like, hello, like put it in our group, like get it over there. And then all these people that I didn't even know were like, hey, I just bought your book. Congratulations. I was like, huh, yay. This is amazing. So I have, tons of gratitude for you for like just the showcasing of how this all can work, even for those of us that are not very social.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. So you recently got married, which is super exciting. And I see you two as this power couple. You both like have your own things going on. You're both badasses. And Sean and I definitely felt like that as well. I would love to get your perspective on just what it's like to be in a relationship like that.
Okay, so I can give a framework for all of this. That comes back to even community. 10 years ago, I was working with a coach, and I was going through challenging times and anxiety and depression kind of stuff. And one of the exercises she asked me to do was to write a list of all of the personality traits and behaviors and things I loved about myself. And then an opposite list, or a different list of all the things I didn't like. Specifically, like not things like physical traits, but like behavior traits or personality traits or actions or things I do or don't do. And then on that second list, the negative ones, what is the opposite of each one? So as an example, if and this wasn't one of mine, but I'll give it as an example. I'm never on time for meetings. So imagine I wrote that as one of the things I didn't like. The opposite is I'm always on time for meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made a master list of my positive traits and the opposite of the negative traits. And that became what I call, this is my language now, my to be list, like designing my future self of what are all the traits I'm looking for. And then fast forward to today, I don't even remember which ones were positive and which ones were the opposites, because it's all me. It's kind of cool. But more importantly, it became a list of values of the people I wanted to surround myself with. And when I met Stephanie, my now wife, it was check, like literally down the list of shared values. And then I also realized it's who I want to serve. Like the part of the curation process is this: it's shared values. And I have this philosophy that when people use the phrase, we have so much in common, they're talking about the past. Meaning like we come from the same country, or we went to the same high school, or we like the same music, or whatever it is. And when I use that phrase, I'm talking about the future. Right. And it's like, this is where we're headed. These are our common traits. And so to me, everyone in Synergy or anyone in Archangel, we have so much in common.
Yeah.
Because we have a common future that we're working towards. And it's the same with Stephanie and I. It's the same with even friends.
I love that so much, just about the lists. I have a quick, just funny story for you, just showcasing how these things can play out. So I'm not very tall, and I had put on my list of who I was looking for. I'm like, I don't really want to date someone like that's like way, way, way taller than me. So on my list, it says, who knows where that list is, but less than like 5'8" or less. And then who did I show up with? Like, I didn't put a minimum on there. So like you fit, it was like the same thing. Check, check, check. And it just works out. So great. That is awesome. So I want to start talking about money and wealth and how you fit all of this together, because like myself, I am very, very, very committed to both the good of it and the making of it. right? So for me, growing up, like in my earlier life, it was definitely a bad thing. I definitely pushed it away. I went through all kinds of terrible financial issues because of that, like purely mindset. That's why I'm always asking you, like, what's the internal stuff? What's the mindset shift, you know? So, what I want to know from you first, so we can start this conversation, is what is your personal definition of wealth?
I um, serendipitously recently, like 3 days ago, thought of this.
Perfect.
My latest version is richness of experience,
Mm,
meaning, or diversity of experience, like meaning how many different kinds of experiences can I have? And I want to, with Stephanie and our family, collect memories. Like I think when people think of wealth, they think of collecting things, um, toys, money, cars, I don't know, whatever it is for people. And for me, I want to collect memories. And the more memories I can collect, so not just mundane day-to-day stuff, even though I love ritual, but how do we have diversity of experience?
I love that because that's the important stuff, right? Like when we're on our deathbed, it does not matter what stuff we have. It's what did we experience? You know, who were we with? What types of things did we grow from? All of that. So that's an awesome answer. I have a framework for you. This is a question I ask all of my guests, and it's to elicit a better understanding so that we, maybe all of us, can learn from you the ways in which you do things that have created the success that you have, that have created, you know, your ability to have those beautiful experiences. So it's based on an acronym called ERB, HERB. I'm going to walk you through each step. The H stands for habits, which you already mentioned ritual. So I can't wait to figure out what is it that you do? What types of habits do you have?
Oh man, so many.
I know. Like, I don't know where you want to start with this, but
Yeah, so I see time and energy, um, as equal to or more valuable currencies than money is. So and thoughts and thinking,
yeah,
right? So
that's awesome.
I'm often thinking, how do I invest my thoughts? How do I invest my energy? How do I invest my time? And if you can, or we can ritualize components of our lives that repeat, um, we we um, we invest less energy into them, which means we have more energy for the diversity things. And the so, for example, and it's also based on priority and goals, right? So, one of my goals lately has been to be literally in gymnast shape,
Oh,
and
nice.
to be at a place where people are kind of blown away at what I can physically do. And I'm currently 46. So right now I'm in the best shape I've ever been in, or I'm the strongest I've ever been.
Nice.
And I'm still just getting started. But to do that and having that as the North Star, now I'm thinking, what is the journey like day to day, where I'm putting the priority on the journey and not really on, because there is no destiny. I don't even know what that looks like.
Right.
But so we go to the gym every day. My diet supports that, and it's not like low calorie, or I eat a lot, but I eat a lot to maintain building muscle.
Yeah.
Sleep
What's your
habits.
favorite food, by the way? Just because I'm a big foodie.
That's a fun and interesting. It used to be beef or steak, and
Hmm.
lately I haven't desired it. So I don't even know if I have a favorite anymore. I
Yeah,
mean, there's the favorites, if I had to pick, are anything Italian because of
of
my
course.
heritage. So pizza and pasta, uh, but I don't have a lot of that. So that's more of the enjoyment meals when we're at a restaurant.
Yes,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, but yeah, um, we've ritualized a lot, even like to make sure the important things are protected, like date nights with Stephanie and time with the kids, and also something genius that she taught me. So my wife is, among other things, an expert in how the brain works and hormones and body function. And for me, my, this will be useful for anyone listening who's like me, but my testosterone peaks in the morning and my estrogen peaks in the afternoon. So she said, um, don't speak to anyone until noon. Like, be in your cave doing your thinking work, strategy work, writing, those kinds of activities, and then batch all of your calls in the afternoon. And my productivity went up like 10x.
I bet.
Because I used to do a call and then pause and do some work and then do another call. And that was very draining. Now I can go until 5 or 6 p.m., full energy, no issues.
What does a typical day look like for you? I'm gonna break up my questioning a little bit. I'm really curious about like getting up. Do you obviously you're in your cave? You just mentioned that, but what types of things are you doing in that phase? And then is it like every day? Are you working? Or do you take days off? Like, what does a typical day look like in your world?
Monday to Thursday are my peak work days. Friday is it's usually a day off unless I have an event or something.
It's like flex.
Yeah. Weekends, they're not really work days. They're more work around the house or dates or fun stuff with the kids. But then
Nice.
I don't ever shut off. So I never want to say
Exactly.
it's
That's
like
why I'm asking. I'm like, how does this all work for you?
but I love what I do. So it's energizing, right? So I might
Right.
write on the weekend, and I'm going to do a lot more writing. And mornings, we wake up, usually have like water, coffee, that kind of thing, and get to the gym every
Nice.
day. And it's usually 5 or 6 days of weights, and then at least 2 cardio sessions, and
Oh
sometimes three
wow.
or
So
four.
mostly weight training.
Yeah. So we train 7 to 9 times a week, like sometimes multiple times a day. But again, it's goal oriented, and we love it.
And you like it, right? That
Yeah.
helps. That helps
It also helps
tremendously.
to be married to a fitness expert
Well,
who's my
yes.
who's my
That
trainer. So
definitely
so
helps.
we work out together. So it's also it's kind of like date. It's a
Yeah, like
bonding
quality
connection.
time.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the E in herb stands for environment. I'd love to know how you set up your environment, whether it be home, office, car, whatever your space that you reside in.
Uh, we recently bought our dream house.
Oh, congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you. And a lot of the reasons it is a dream house is because it checks off all the boxes that were important. So we have a home, like a really big home gym, and that was very useful more for COVID. And now we go to a gym because I like the community aspect of being around other people. Um, I'm standing in what is going to become our studio, but it's also a home theater. So there's like a projector
Cool.
and a movie screen because I
Nice.
I produce films.
Obviously,
Um,
right. You need to watch them on the big screen.
so that's part of the environment. Um, and every square inch of this house is useful and functional. Uh, so when I'm doing my thinking work, I can be in any room.
Oh,
I don't
cool.
have like a desk where I sit at.
You know what I really like about that you have a movie theater? It's that you celebrate your work, because a lot of times we might not have that possibility because our work might just, if we're a coach, let's say, the other person's success and experience is wonderful, but it's not the same thing as having a thing or something to watch. And I love that you actually have it in your house that we can be like, we made this thing. Let's
Yeah.
watch it. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, very, very cool. So the R in herb stands for resources. That could be books, programs, groups, humans, whatever resources. But what I would love to know specifically is which resources, because I'm sure you could name, 1,000 of them, have really, really, truly impacted you and that you would recommend to others.
Hmm. Um, it's very hard not to be self-promotional.
You can be self-promotional.
Like I recommend everyone either lead or join a community of people who are aligned with them, because I find that growth happens way faster in community. So part of why I've created what I've created is for my own personal growth first.
Totally. I get it.
Right. And even our council, so our council group is for founders running multi-million dollar businesses. And the reason I started it, and this is actually interesting, it took me forever to start it because of imposter syndrome.
Ooh,
Because specifically because I thought if I'm going to do this group, every single when I launch this, I want every person to be ahead of me somehow, so that they act as a like a board of advisors for me to help me grow Archangel.
yeah,
And then I
brilliant.
thought, well, who the heck am I to lead a group of people who are all ahead of me? And the revelation I had that I think anyone listening or watching would find useful is that none of them cared that they were ahead of me. They only cared that I can get them ahead.
Right.
Right. So they can leverage my gifts to go further down their own paths. And that's how I help them connect. And when you're really successful in the entrepreneurial world, making friends is actually very hard because everyone wants a piece of you. And how do you know who to trust or who to collaborate with? And I'm very good at vetting and I'm very good at connecting. So they save thousands of hours, which at their level is worth millions of dollars for me to
Totally.
facilitate those connections.
I love that. And I think my audience is incorporated with a lot of coaches. Any coach has had that experience of like, this person, this potential client is more successful, whatever version we use of that word, more successful than me. How could I coach them? But you're right. If we can help them get to that next level, whatever that next level is huge. What did that transition of understanding that about yourself, like getting over that imposter syndrome, what did that feel like? Because I imagine at first it was like very uncomfortable to start having those conversations about, hey, this is this group we're creating, and do you want to be a part of it? Can you talk a little bit about that transition, like the internal
Yeah,
aspect of
sure.
it?
It always starts with discomfort
Yeah, true.
and fear. And that's,
True.
but if when you understand that that's the pattern, you can have a better relationship with fear. I actually I kind of love fear now.
Mm,
Um, and um, the fear turns into, um, I guess, skill. So the secret is the areas where you know it's important and you have a fear and you feel imposter syndrome. It's usually because you care about the thing,
yeah,
and that paralyzes people from moving forward. But if you um, take the steps, like baby steps, to actually develop the skill, the fear and the discomfort lessen or become less, and the confidence grows. And confidence is a skill set. Like once I actually learned that, to me was huge. I used
like,
to
oh,
think
I can
confident.
develop this.
Yeah, I used to think confidence was a born trait. Like that person has confidence, I don't, so I'm screwed my whole life. Until I realized, oh wait, no, confidence comes from skill acquisition. It comes from mastery and craft and practice, like playing the piano or doing a sport. Like
Exactly. Yeah,
so wherever that discomfort is, that's the clue of the direction. And then you discomfort leads to growing your comfort zone or your confidence zone, and you get better and better. But you have to actually go in that direction. That's the hardest part.
totally. So the B in herb stands for beliefs. And that could be, what is your worldview? The ways in which you see the world. Which beliefs have really just helped you have the rocket fuel that your life has had to have the trajectory that you have created?
Hmm. Another fascinating topic. So I'm lately, I've been obsessed with questioning every belief,
Good.
or not auditing, actually, might be a better word, just to see how far I can actually go with things, and to
Okay,
see
that
where
sounds
my
exciting.
the blind spots are, or the self-imposed limitations, or the other people imposed limitations that I don't even know are there. Um, so that to me, the meta belief is to audit my beliefs. And I think if we all started doing that and being more objective and realizing how much bias we all have without
Mhm.
even knowing it, um, and to be open to the possibility of changing your mind, like that's huge.
Are there beliefs that you have come across that you're like, yeah, I should throw that one out, or I don't even really believe that? Or can you give us an example?
Yeah, very specific. And to be transparent. So when I was a child, I was born in 1976. So I grew up in the 80s. And a lot of the messaging in the 80s was drugs are bad, say no to drugs. That like it was a very big political campaign,
Totally. You and I are about the
especially in
same
the
age,
US.
so I get it. Like that whole thing.
So I was like, okay, cool. I'm not going to do anything, to the point where when I was in my teens and early 20s, I was producing dance parties for teenagers, thousands of people coming to my nightclubs and events, and I had never touched a drug and I had never been drunk. And everyone thought, what's wrong? Like the peer pressure was insane
I'm sure,
because a
because that's
lot
like
of
a
that was, yeah,
party
right.
culture.
So my nickname back then was Johnny Angel. And Johnny is the English version of Giovanni.
Okay.
So, and then up until my like 5 years ago, never been drunk, never touched any kind of drug. And then
That's
until a friend
impressive.
introduced me to a therapist, because I wanted help with healing and trauma and stuff, a therapist that worked with psychedelics,
Perfect.
and started, and I should put a disclaimer. This is my own opinion.
We talk about this on this
Yeah,
podcast a
okay.
lot, so you're in very
Well, just
comfortable
because
territory.
some people have issues.
I'm a huge advocate of all these things.
Okay, but the experiences that I've had working with that therapist have not only been the most healing, transformative thing I've ever done, it also opened me up. And this is what started my auditing my beliefs, because it's like when you're in ego dissolution and you can see things objectively, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, where did all
Hold
these
on.
things come from?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where that's been hugely transformative, and my now complete 180 on the belief that drugs are bad. Drugs are bad if they're abused, right? Or if there's an addiction and those kinds of things, which
Well, there's also a difference between like heroin
yeah,
and psychedelic,
right.
very, very sacred and helpful things.
But I also think, and potentially people can get attached to medicines or psychedelics. Like for me, and again, my own philosophy, they're not the solution. They're like the bridge to this. It's like
Right.
creating the awareness of what needs to be healed, which is very powerful. But then without the integration or the work that comes after, it just becomes more entertaining. That's my
Yeah.
own personal view on that.
Yeah. The way that I think about it is, you can go to therapy, you can go to coaching, you can do all of these things, and oftentimes have great results for sure. But it's a very, very active process, and you have to do a lot of work to get to those results. Whereas my experience, at least with these various sacred things, it's a much more passive. It's like, oh, it's doing it to me in a sense. And yes, there is still the integration, there is still the realizations and the understandings and all of that, but it's a very different dynamic of how that healing process works. So that's freaking awesome. One of the things that I wanted to ask you is, how long ago was it that you were, because you mentioned like, anxiety, depression, not in great shape, doing real estate, all these things that couldn't have been like, you're not that old. So how long ago was that?
The biggest transformative year was 2016. So
Which is not that long ago. Like that's crazy to me.
Thanks. In 2016, I lost 70 pounds as part of this transformation. Made a lot of changes. And in 2015, I did a lot of work to figure these things out, but not just 2015. It was like a cumulative 5-year process.
That's so like small though in the, whole life experience, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like what a great example, and showcasing the possibility for anybody out there who's like, yeah, really not loving my life right now, really not vibing with all the stuff that I've got going on. And like, that's not a long time. And you have had this completely transform, like different body, different relationship, different money, different work. Like, what? That is awesome. How did you do it so fast? Let me just ask you that. Because I don't think that's normal.
Well, first, I appreciate that. I think it was stacking. So it was one thing at a time, almost like dominoes, right? So the first domino was starting Archangel in 2014 and being connected to work that actually fulfilled me. And then the second domino was working with coaches and therapists and people that can help me see what the challenges were. And then the third big domino was quitting real estate and going all into Archangel.
Yeah.
Like I quit real estate at the beginning of 2016. And in that 9 months, that's when I lost the 70 pounds. So by the time we had our first event in September,
that's so badass. You're like, oh, I'm starting this group. Oh, and I'm going to be a totally different person when you see me there.
Yeah. And then also meeting Stephanie so everything kind of intersected.
And you met her that year.
Yep.
That's so cool. Gosh. I mean, I feel like the whole like universe, or maybe you shifted the universe. I don't know. That is so awesome. And I just want to highlight to our audience, like, it doesn't have to take forever, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, but there's so many changes I'd like to create, or there's so many things that I don't like now. Okay. Like, use Giovanni as an example and be like, let's go. Let's start this and then do this and stack the things and get the habits and like all the stuff. That is amazing. So yeah, that's huge.
Thank you.
Yeah. One final question. If you were to speak to our audience, and most especially maybe the person who is feeling like, I don't like any of this stuff, nothing's working, blah, and they're just in it, because we've all been in it, right? Like at certain points in time, what might you say to that person right now who's in it from your perspective today?
Wow. If you trust me an ounce, so if you've liked me just a little bit from this conversation,
and even if not, maybe they trust me and I trust you, so perfect, borrow it.
Yeah. To realize that the experience you're currently having is a benefit. It's so I'll use analogies because I like them. I lift heavy weights, and when I do so, it's not comfortable, and yet it breaks down muscle fiber, but then that allows the muscle to build. And that's how I've been able to become my strongest. You can't be strong without breaking the muscle first. You can't jump without squatting first. And you can't grow without discomfort. So if you're in it, I think we're so pain avoidant, that we actually cause more trouble for ourselves by trying to always avoid or trying to stay in a comfort zone. But if you choose discomfort and have a different relationship with discomfort and fear, because you understand that it leads to the next level, you will actually grow, and the growth makes up for the pain.
Gio, you just solved something for me, and I'm so, so, so grateful. What you just said, and I'm so happy this is recorded. I want to go back and like write it down because you just clarified for me the distinction of how my grieving process after Sean died was so very different from many, many others. Many, many other people try to avoid it and they don't want to do it. Whereas I dove in like to the deep end and was like, this is what we're doing right now. We're grieving. And it sucked and it was very, very uncomfortable, but that is the distinct. Thank you. First of all, back to you though. If folks are listening and they're like, this guy's a badass, I'm totally into it, and I want to get to know what he's up to, follow him, see what Synergy is all about or Archangel is all about, where should they go to find you?
Social media is the easiest. So at Giovanni Marsico official is my handle. I am soon going to have a site, like a site where I write articles at my name. So giovannimarsico.com.
Awesome.
So I'm assuming by the time this is published, I should be there. That's probably the best place to start.
Okay, great. I will link to all those things. And if you're listening on a podcast, you can find that at lucra.com under the show notes. If you're on YouTube, just check out the comments down below for all of the links. Gio, this is awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I totally appreciate you and you sharing your journey, because like I said, it's a great example of what is possible, and most especially in like not that long of a time. You really have created something just astounding with that is your life. And for those of us that get to experience it with you and also like see it along the way, it's like, oh, yay, amazing. So huge thanks to you.
You're very welcome. I've loved this conversation.